Today marked the fourth day of the Israeli military's sustained ground operation into Gaza. In Washington, support for Israel remains a top priority. Just about 30 minutes ago, House Republicans released a measure that will provide $14.3 billion to Israel. The emergency spending would be offset by money allocated to the IRS but not spent under the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Join me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Scott Perry. He serves on 3 House committees, including the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He is also the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus and has 3 decades of military experience. He retired as a general, and he represents the 10th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Congressman Perry, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, it's great to be with you, Tony, and it's also great to hear what the speaker put out today, that we're going to get rid of some terrorists, and to do that, we're going to get rid of some unnecessary IRS agents. I think that's a trade that I'm willing to make every single day of the week, and especially support of our strongest ally, Israel, while they're under this unprovoked attack from Hamas and other like-minded terrorists. And so I think this is a good day for America. This is a good message to send, and I look to see the debate and how those who will not defend such action will be standing on the side of the IRS agents and apparently the terrorists.
Well, let's talk about that, because the Biden administration, the White House wanting to push the $105 billion, combining it with the $60+ billion for Ukraine, some humanitarian funds, all of that crammed together with this 14.3 for Israel. It's clearly because they were having difficulty selling the additional funds for Ukraine.
Yeah, they're having difficulty selling funds for Ukraine. There's no oversight there. We've spent billions of dollars there. No one knows where it's gone. And of course, we don't know what the mission is. And so they're trying to throw the existential threat that Israel is facing right now in on top of that, as well as more border money, Tony. Let's not forget that. And it's not to stop people from coming across the border illegally, including people that may be part of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's to process them more efficiently. So they threw that all in there. Tony, as you know, America is sick of these packages. They want to see these things separated. They want to know how their members vote on it. They don't want the old excuse, well, I had to vote for the Ukraine funding because it was important that we take care of our ally Israel, and that was all in one package, and I didn't have any choice. We need to give the American people and members of Congress and Senate the choice by doing them on a standalone basis, and let's see where the votes fall. Let's let each one of these very important issues have their own debate, and let's let the points be made.
So Congressman Perry, walk us through how you see this unfolding, because this is going to be a pretty intense battle. It's going to be the first real battle for the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, in holding the ground against not just the White House, not just Chuck Schumer in the Senate, but there are some Republicans in the Senate pushing for the same thing that President Biden is.
Well, with all due respect, I have my faith in the good Lord first and Mike Johnson in this regard second. And as you describe some of those Republicans, and you describe them as other than the same as the White House or the Democrats in the Senate, I see them in this case as very much the same. They need to put their votes on record, and if they want to support Ukraine and not have have an open border in the United States of America, let's allow them to make that case. But like I said, the American people want these things to be separated. They want to see how their representatives and senators vote. And of course, this is why some of the senators don't want that. They like to hide under the cloak of darkness, under the cloak of, oh, it's all mixed together. And, we had to vote for one to get the other. We didn't really like this, but we had to do it to get that. Americans are sick of that shell game in Washington, D.C., and they've been playing it for decades now. We have a new speaker. It's a new day. We're going to do things differently. Welcome to it, everybody. Welcome to it, America, and welcome to it, Joe Biden and Democrats and progressive Republicans in the Senate as well.
And I would add to that, as a result of that way of doing business, we have $33 trillion in debt. That's how you get there.
Indeed, yes.
I want to go, you're on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I want to go to what we've seen over the weekend with this rise of hatred toward the Jewish people. We're seeing the anti-Semitism here in the United States as well as around the globe. But I want to go to Friday, to the United Nations, where the United Nations General Assembly failed to reach the two-thirds threshold to simply pass a resolution denouncing Hamas. Now, we provide 30% of the funding for the United Nations or more. How do we explain this to the American people? As you were just talking about, they want us to do business that makes sense. This doesn't make sense.
Of course it doesn't make sense. And the United Nations has long been a shill for the anti-Israeli, the anti-Semitic sentiment around the globe, which is why I have long advocated for either reducing our participation or getting out altogether. Now, there'll be people that say, well, we need to be there to influence the conversation, to influence the votes. But when you can't get common sense votes like this, I'm not sure our influence is very valuable. Meanwhile, this is just one of many in a long list of anti-Semitic actions by the United Nations, because it's used as a proxy for all these anti-Semitic organizations and countries around the globe. We ought to recognize it as such and either force them to get their act together or kick them out of New York City and get out altogether and recognize them for what they are, a feckless and worthless organization that hasn't stopped one war, that hasn't been on the side of freedom and democratic values, that haven't been on the side of certainly biblical values, and haven't been on the side of the money that the American taxpayer, the hard-earned money, is sent to them to use.
Right.
And I think it's high time that we acknowledge that. If not now, when are we going to?
I mean, we are giving them money to work against our national priorities. I want to, before we run out of time, Congressman Perry, I want to go to an issue that was raised by Senator Vance over the weekend, and others have talked about it, and that's the fact that we now have two hot wars going on, and our military-industrial complex is having a hard time keeping up. Are you concerned about the depletion of munitions that would be used to fight these wars?
I have been concerned for some time, and of course, I'm most concerned as a former member of the uniformed services myself when I hear reports that our own members in the United States of America wearing the uniform of the United States of America don't have the appropriate or adequate supplies to do their own training, including munitions. So while I say we want to help our friends and our allies, Israel or otherwise, we need to make sure that we're proficient and we have everything we need. And Tony, as you know, we need to make sure we can afford it. And while leftists from both sides of the aisle in Congress have been happy to spend money on all kinds of things at untold expense, $2.5 trillion in deficit this year, $33 trillion overall and climbing, they have been unwilling to make the hard choices when it comes to our military and our prioritization. It is high time they do that, and this is a clarion call. This is the warning sign that we are not making the right prioritization of our assets and our spending, and we need to keep that in order in a very dangerous world, especially as this administration has us on the precipice of World War III on at least two fronts now.
And this is going to be the perfect opportunity with this $14.3 billion right. for Israel being offset by money coming back from the IRS. This will be a true test. Congressman, great to see you. Thanks so much, Chairman of the Freedom Caucus, for joining us. Scott Perry.